got a fever. I got a permanent disease. It'll take more than a doctor to prescribe a remedy. I got lots of money, but it isn't what I need. Gonna take more than a shot to get this poison out of me. And I got all the symptoms. Count them. 1, 2, 3. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley from deep in the bowels of our underground layer, where we have fewer blackouts and dead space than Newark Airport air traffic control.
Jeez.
How's it going?
I guess it's going okay.
Yeah? You're not flying into Newark. That's good.
No, I would never fly there.
Yeah.
Who'd go to the East Coast? You got to be crazy.
My youngest.
I have flown into JFK before.
Yeah. Okay.
So, which is what the far east part of New York there.
Yeah.
I don't even know what part that is.
I haven't flown into that.
Not Manhattan. It's not Brooklyn. I don't know what it is, but
it's not Long Island. I don't know.
It's not the Bronx. I don't know what the hell it is.
Harlem.
It's in Harlem, north of Central Park, if I remember right. I've been to New York once, and I hope I never go again.
My youngest just flew home from Washington, D.C., had a school trip for 3 days or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
No. Hope he's
He
okay.
made it home alive.
Hope he's okay, not poisoned for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Well, he did get he did try to get bought off by Eric Swalwell from his description.
You got to watch him, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
The song, Fever, right? The song Fever by Aerosmith.
No.
The song is I've Got a Fever by Jefferson Helicopter.
Why would it be called I Got a Fever when the line was I Ain't Got a Fever?
Okay. The song is I Ain't Got a Fever. It's by Leonard Skinner.
It just proves how much you listen to me.
It's I've Got a Fever from who else sings it? It is Garfunkel and Simon.
No.
Well, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I got fever, right? So that's part of it.
I often will give the chorus. I threw you a curveball today. It was actually more of like a knuckle curve, and gave you the verse. If I gave you the chorus, you'd get it.
I don't know about that, Jay. Don't get too
Bad Medicine, Bon Jovi.
Oh yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, and I don't say this out of any disrespect.
So it's not
to
he doesn't have a fever, but he takes bad medicine anyway.
Right. Yeah,
well, that makes about as much sense as a Joe Biden press conference.
Yeah, and I'm not using this song out of disrespect to our former president. We'll cover that, but the people he surrounded himself with, we'll cover that too.
Well, he doesn't know, so I can't really hold it against him. I have to say one thing before we get into that.
Yeah.
A big death yesterday in the entertainment world. George Wendt passes away from Cheers.
Saw that. He wasn't that old.
76 is what I heard. It's interesting, too. The cast is very much still alive. Christy Alley passed away. Obviously, the coach passed away during the show. But everybody else, I think, is
Woody Harrelson,
Kelsey Grammer, John Ratzenberger. They're all still around.
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite Cheers episode, Jay? You got a favorite?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There were a lot of episodes.
Well, I think it ran 10 seasons, or they had the first half with Shelley Long, and then God, I just said her name. What the hell's the name? Rebecca. Yeah. Kirstie Alley for the second half of the show.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that stand out.
Yeah.
Some people say something went out of the show when Shelley Long left. I think that's true to a degree, but I think the cast was so good that it more than compensated for that, for the Ted Danson, Shelley Long kind of dynamic.
Did you know Glenn Beck was in an episode?
No, I didn't know that.
Just in the background, but yes, he was.
By the way,
he was an extra. Yes.
You know how Frasier went on to do his own series?
Yes.
There's an episode where Frasier says that his dad was dead. John Mahoney played his dad on the show.
Yep.
And there is a Long Lost episode where Frasier said his dad had passed away.
Huh.
Just a little tidbit to it. I think if there's an episode of Cheers, there's a lot of episodes that stand out, but I loved The Coach.
Yeah.
And I know Woody Harrelson did a good job of being like a 30-year-old version of the Coach.
Yeah.
But the episode where he sang Albania to Ted Danson, and he's like, Albania, come on, Sam, sing it with me. On the corner of the Adriatic. If I see that episode, I have to stop and watch it. It's just the best. And there's another episode where Norm paints somebody's house.
Yeah.
And Christy Alley's like locked in a closet and can't get out or something like that. I don't remember it, but he like carries this guy up across the any episode 2 with Gary's Old Town Tavern is another one that's great. But there's a lot that stick out. But George Wendt, I mean, just a classic. The Norm character, just the bar regular, the guy who does nothing but drink beer all day and rip on his wife. I mean, we all know one. Norm's an easy character to relate to, I think. Too bad. It's just too bad that he's passed away. I'll tell you what.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it was Rowan and Martin were the 2 top guys. Okay. They won't show reruns of that anymore.
Really?
Because of the cultural insensitivity of some of the jokes. You can't find. I grew up with that on Nick at Night and things like that. Now they won't run that. They won't play it because of the jokes making somebody feel bad.
Right.
You can only make fun of white Trump voters. That's the only group out there that has no rights, or Christians.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, let's take a look at how the last Snow White movie did, and that's how people think about your woke approach to entertainment. They're saying that's one of the worst movies of all time.
Now, which one now?
The new Snow White.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So,
I mean, I'm not going to watch it.
No.
Of course.
Not at all. I won't watch 2 seconds of it. But for some reason, they've got the money to put out whatever they want. Although alternate forms of entertainment are growing in popularity. There's a market for it. People are putting it out there, and it's doing
because you don't
fairly
need
well.
Because you don't need the distribution anymore. There used to be
Right.
a time where you could only distribute, and only a few companies controlled that.
Right.
Now technology's knocked down that barrier. 25 years, if you made an independent film, you couldn't get it shown anywhere.
Right. Film houses, I mean, the theaters that are left, anyways, they'll take from anywhere pretty much, as long as whoever can pay, and then if it does well, like, it can stay in theaters longer. But
sure,
yeah,
agreed. And if it starts doing well, they can always bring it back. I mean, there's always a market for that. I still like going to the movies.
Yeah,
I don't do it much because there's nothing I want to see.
I love it. Yeah,
but I miss it.
Right.
I mean, the only movies I saw at the old Robbinsdale Terrace in the 80s and 90s, I can't even calculate how many.
Oh, yeah.
Every Friday night, there was something to go see.
Oh, yeah. You could afford popcorn and pop back
well,
then.
I remember the matinee shows, too. If you wanted to go Saturday afternoon, there was always a deal if you wanted to go. If I didn't quite have the lawn mowing money, I mean, there was always something to watch. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me likes that, and part of me is kind of sad that it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
But nothing's what it used to be. I mean, it's just
yeah.
I just wonder if there's like a cool like drive-in playing like old movies or something like that. How well that would do.
There's
old date movies or something.
There's a drive-in out in is it Lake Elmo? I'm not sure if they do new stuff or if they do old stuff, or maybe a mixture. I don't know. There's not too many of those left though. I'm trying to remember. Thought there was one on the south end of town too, but I don't know if that's there anymore.
It might be. There might be. I mean, there's a few, but I mean, it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. the times change.
Yeah.
What can you say? They just do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there was a time you went and rented a movie.
Yeah.
You know,
imagine that.
Blockbuster was.
You would waste an hour looking through movies in the store.
Blockbuster over in New Hope. I can remember that. That was like one of the biggest ones around.
Yeah.
It was huge. And I mean, they had a huge inventory.
Yeah.
And some of the rentals were only $1. I mean,
Really?
not the new releases, but if it was up there for like a month, sometimes I'd wait till it was $1 and I'd go rent it. I mean, back in the 90s, that was renting a movie was big. The old tapes and the VCR, but it's amazing how quick that technology just boom blew those stores.
Oh, I know.
Completely out.
They were like overnight.
Yeah, it felt like it. I mean, they came in the 80s and 90s, and by the 2010s, they were gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, technology is what it is. It just is. So, anyhow, hats off to George Wendt. Thank you for the memories from Norm. Hats off here to another guy who may as well be dead, but is still around, our former president. Jay, let me ask you a question. What do you make of the so-called revelations that we've all been hearing about the past few weeks that some of us knew 2 years ago?
Some of us knew 4 years ago. Some of us 6 years ago.
I mean, Mark Halperin tells the story of seeing Biden in 2017 all glassy-eyed and saying to himself, God, gee, thank God he didn't run in 2016. And I mean, what do you make of this? You know, the Dems trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do. I think the Dems have an out if they would use it.
Yeah.
I'll say what that is in a little bit. But what is your sense of these alleged revelations and this, which is really suspicious to me?
Yeah.
I can't understand how this president just discovered this last Friday. It makes no sense. But how do you react to this?
Well, I mean, it was sad to hear that he has cancer, on top of. But if you think back, when was it? Was it, let's see, 2021 or 2022, where he said something about having cancer? Do you remember that? I remember him mumbling that, and it was sort of not taken seriously.
Right.
And
the world just moved on.
Right. Well, media covered for it.
Right.
Obviously.
Media didn't follow up, stopped running the clips.
Yeah.
But,
we don't know. And that's the thing, because Biden spent so much time either saying whatever he wanted to, whether it was true or not, to try and get people on his side, or he would say things that weren't true because he just didn't know any better anymore, or he would sometimes say things that were true that he shouldn't be saying. So
well, let me put it this way: this White House, not Trump but Biden, hasn't told the truth yet.
Right.
So the idea, I have the feeling we're scratching the surface.
Oh, I think so.
I have the feeling we have 10% of the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear to the whole world. The late great Ray Charles knew that that Biden had dementia or Alzheimer's, and he's been gone a long time, and he was blind.
Well,
right?
Well, I mean, what 70% of the country was, including half of Democrats, either didn't want him to run again, didn't think he'd live out a second term, wanted to choose their own candidate, and let me ask you this. How do you react to somebody like Jake Tapper or Alex Thompson who gets an award for his report? I'd like to know how Axios got these Her tapes. Yeah. That's another thing I'd like to know. Why weren't they released earlier? I can understand why Pam Bondi or somebody didn't release it. You don't want to make it look like it's a partisan hit job.
Right.
And I don't think they should investigate. I'll get to what we should do in a little bit. about this because I think we have to I think the 25th Amendment needs to be reformed. I think we need to figure something out here.
Yeah.
Funny, they wrote books awful fast.
They sure did.
Trying to profit off their own negligence, trying to justify, if you will. Jake Tapper was on with Megyn Kelly yesterday and really had no good answers for why he didn't pursue what he pursued and he didn't really fess up. Everybody has tried to offer, we'll get into other people in a minute, but here's the same media that didn't cover this. They're now covering it. They're now writing books on it.
Yeah.
Nobody's been fired. I'm all for freedom of the press. I don't want to censor anybody. I don't want to do anything like that. But there has to be accountability.
Yes.
And where's the accountability? How does just Scarborough have a job? He should be fired and he should never be in media again.
Yeah.
This is a guy who twice a month said he met with the President of the United States.
Yes.
How could he possibly go out there and not report what he saw? How does Carl Bernstein have a job?
Well, not only go out there and not report what he saw, he took it a step further and he flat out lied. To say something like, this is the best Joe Biden that I've seen, the best version of Joe Biden. No, there's nobody who can honestly say that because we were all watching him. And if you're even closer to him, he's not looking better. He's looking worse. And then to come on after all of it is done and to say that, well, yeah, I don't know if I really knew the depth of it. What do you mean you don't know if you knew the depth of it?
Well, some people, I think, may have had they may not have understood how bad it was. That's possible. Not Scarborough.
Right.
But there are other people who may have had a different sense of how bad it was. I don't know. But I will take this further and further and further. You can't tell me, and I mentioned Mark Halperin, who I really like, but he was chastising people on his two-way podcast the other day. Well, Joe Biden still made all the decisions. You don't know that he didn't make all the decisions. Like, wait a minute. You can't on the one hand say, well, a president had good days and bad days. President couldn't function after 4:30. Well, then I want to know, if he had a bad day, what happened?
Yeah.
If he had a bad day, who made the choices then? It couldn't have been him.
Right.
You can't say he made every decision and at the same time he was not all there.
Yeah. And we know that people were using somebody was using the auto pen to sign things. And
again, I want to get into this cancer treatment in a minute because that may explain some of it from what I've heard. I heard Dr. Drew go on a long tirade about, God, he hates Biden. Holy cow. He just went on a tirade about how the treatment of prostate cancer can bring about some of these symptoms that he has.
Yeah.
And how there's no possibility that this diagnosis, they're not fooling anybody.
No.
Why? What is it with politicians who just cannot fess up and say, you know what? I was completely wrong.
Yeah, they can't.
What is up with that?
I don't know. Because I tell you this, stage 4 prostate cancer that is attaching to the bone does not just pop up one day.
A Gleason score of 9? I've had a PSA test before. There's no way him at 82, with access to the best medical care on the face of the earth for free, never had a PSA test. That's not plausible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's possible something was caught a little later than maybe it could have been. Of course that's possible. It's possible he didn't have symptoms right away. That can happen.
Yeah.
The idea that this happened last Friday is just preposterous.
Right.
I'm sorry. Look, I tell you, I have two theories on why this became public. Okay. One, and I'm being such a cynic here. One is obviously the timing of the Her tapes, the Tapper Thompson book, to gain sympathy and all that. That's got to be part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, but the other thing is how bad this diagnosis really is. I mean, they talked about managing it, not curing it.
Right.
Managing it.
Yeah, that's not good.
They talked about being stage 4, which still he can live for a while. I mean, prostate cancer is something you can live with for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But my guess is he already has.
Right.
So it may be a situation where, there's not as much time as, I have no idea what the time is.
Yeah.
But I think that the diagnosis is pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, prostate cancer for, the stage that it's in, and they said it's aggressive.
To the bones.
Yeah. And they said it's an aggressive form of it.
Yeah.
I don't see how much longer he can last.
He
And
may not. I don't know. But so it's a bad diagnosis with the timing of it. But I mean, to listen to what do you make of Chuck Schumer's reaction to it? Where he was asked about it, he said, No, we're looking forward. No, we're not talking about that. I mean, come on, they can't. Do you think, Bill O'Reilly went on TV and said the whole Democratic leadership has to be decapitated.
Yes.
Everybody's got to go.
Yeah.
There's no way they can survive. I don't know that that's true, though. Because I still think the media is covering. I still think that, like I said, we know 10 to 20% of the story.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot that we don't know, and it whether you're looking at the early signs of his mental decline, all the way through George Clooney being the one tapped to make the move to get rid of him. You're never gonna convince me he acted on his own. That somebody didn't put him up to it. That
Of course, that's more than possible.
Yeah.
But the Dems have an out here. And to me, the Dems out is to say, look, I saw it. Okay. Maybe I didn't have a sense of how bad it was. But I was on Team Blue. He was our guy. We had to prop him up. Wasn't my decision. I shouldn't have done that. Blah, blah, blah. They have an out to me.
Yeah.
That's a bad statement. It's still bad. Mm-hmm. But this whole idea, I saw, I don't know if it was Chris Murphy or somebody. I saw Senator Bennett from Colorado in just a cringe interview. Cringe. He's bumbling and fumbling and trying to, go back and forth. I saw Pete Buttigieg try to walk it back and then try to claim he didn't know and then try to. The more that they don't own it, and here's the other part of it. The DNC went after anybody who tried to challenge him.
Yeah.
Be that Dean Phillips, my former congressman, be it RFK Jr., who they basically chased out of the party, be it, I can't remember the other lady's name who tried to run.
Marianne
Williams or something. But okay, there should have, anybody who tried to make a challenge they tried to sue, they tried to get off the ballot, they tried to destroy whoever that was at the DNC. Right. I don't know who that was. We still don't know. Of course, we have no idea. Then when it blows up, they have to insert the vice president, who's handicapped by the Biden administration, even though she's not challenged about it.
Right.
Never is asked about it. Said Biden was sharp as a tack, which was clearly a lie. No way she didn't know. Sorry, not possible. Not believing it.
Yeah.
And then they lose, and I think they would have lost against anybody. That's my opinion. I think Trump would have beaten anybody they threw up against him. That's my opinion. And now it's the circular firing squad. And they still, in 6.5 months have not figured out how to move on from this. The Biden thing's going to dog them for a while, because I'll tell you what, I'm running against a Democrat in 2028. You and I play for a commercial. You want to run Amy Klobuchar? I'll run a commercial telling everybody, yeah, Biden was sharp as a tack. Biden ran circles around me. Biden ran around his staff. Blah, blah, blah. There's my commercial.
Yeah.
And you could say what to it? What? What's your defense?
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom the night said Biden won the debate. Boom. There. That's what I play if he wants to run.
Yep.
If Iceman wants to run. Okay? So I'm and the fact Biden won't go away, is another problem that they've got, that he still wants to be out there, and Jill clearly doesn't. They probably had to drag her out of the White House.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably had to get leg irons on her and pull her out of there. I mean, how long does this dog them for? Now, they've got the complicity of the media, but the media's turned on them.
Yeah.
It's self-serving, of course.
Right. They're not siding with the conservatives by any means, but they are turning on some of this from the Democrats because it's indefensible. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because you want to blame Democrats for their lies and their sweeping things under the carpet and trying to act like, oh, you should see what we're seeing. But Jill, she knew. She had to have known. There's no way she didn't know.
Are you kidding?
And she pressed him onward. Despicable.
It has to be. Bill O'Reilly called her Edith Wilson.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's not true. But here, let me ask you this, Jay. Do you think that the House needs to open up? Because this is, again, where I think the Trump administration has to maintain a little distance here. Yeah. That I don't think the Attorney General or somebody can run this because it's going to look partisan. Do you think the House has to have hearings and subpoena Ron Klain, Jake Sullivan, Jill Biden, subpoena what's the John Pierre lady? I mean, because there's no marriage privilege here, as far as I can see.
No.
So how do you think that has to happen? What are they going to do? I mean, are they going to plead how could they get around executive privilege? I mean, what are they going to assert here to get around? What if that happened? Let's say there was a hearing and Jill Biden was subpoenaed. What would happen?
She'd lie.
Well, that's a given. Of course, that's a crime. Look what Roger Stone was prosecuted for, which was not remembering a phone call. Total bull.
Yeah.
But whatever you think of Stone, whatever. But it was ridiculous what he was charged with.
Right.
What happens if that happens? Can the Congress subpoena the chief of staff and make them testify?
You can subpoena him. Obviously, they can plead the fifth.
But you got immunity.
Yeah.
Here, Ron Klain, you got immunity. You can't plead the fifth. Give him immunity. I'm fine with that. I want to know the truth.
Yeah.
And if we have to give one person immunity, I'm good with it. But what happens?
Well, I don't see where they would squeal. Then they're implicating themselves, and their reputations are more important to them than anything.
I think you're right. I think that's terrible. I think you're right.
They want to be able to work under the next Democrat administration, and
of course, they're always the next job. I always say they can get hired at MSNBC.
Yeah,
but
their next job depends on how loyal they are. What are they willing to cover for?
I don't know. I don't know, but this is the biggest scandal ever.
Yeah.
I mean, can you believe Watergate brought down a president compared to this? I mean, literally we have, and I just, I also wish somebody from the media would just tell the truth and say, look, we didn't want Trump to be president again.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing. That's why we were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, threat to democracy. How about a president who isn't really president? That's not a threat to democracy.
Right.
And we just hated him so much that we shaped the news, lied about it, propped up somebody we knew was an old bag with eyeballs. Why don't they just, I mean, I feel like the first journalist who says that deserves a Pulitzer Prize. Yeah. It's like, okay, finally, I heard the truth. You know that's the truth.
Oh, yeah.
But none of them will say it.
No.
You know? How did Kamala Harris not get asked? She still hasn't been asked about it.
Right.
Oh, yeah, sharpest attack. Oh, you ran circle. Bullshit. He clearly didn't do that. Guy couldn't stay awake after 6 o'clock. Mm. But I tell you what, to watch Tapper and Alex Thompson profit off this is really just getting me angry. I mean, it's really just to watch them to watch Alex Thompson get awards for this at Axios, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you were late to the party. You got there before CNN, but that really doesn't mean anything as far as I'm concerned. You know, it just, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just very pissed about it.
Yeah.
And it's not fair. It's not fair they get to do this.
No,
it's not fair. Nobody is held accountable for it. And these, mega corporate media outlets now get to cover the President Trump, who they openly tried to destroy.
Right.
Still are. And now they get to cover him and pretend that nothing happened. I mean, that's what happened last year. Biden was out, Harris was in, and everyone just moved on to the next, like nothing happened.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. You know, I mean, when you look at where these people go to school, Columbia, Brown.
Yeah, journalism used to be a blue-collar job.
Yeah.
You almost walked a beat.
Uh-huh.
Now it's an elite job. Now it's be part of the club.
Yep.
That's what the whole goal is, to get invited to the I think that changed with Watergate. I think that's where it really changed with their story was to be the news, find the news. Be the first to something. And I think that changed journalism forever. But do you think, this is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think anything changes going forward?
No.
I mean, let me ask you this. After weapons of mass destruction, there was some the media looking themselves in the mirror. Yeah. After the Russia dossier hoax, maybe 5% looked in the mirror and said, but I'm not going to have that Adam Schiff guy on again. Okay, I mean, there was some reflection. Yeah, in my opinion, there's still been, but there's still been not the full mea culpa that if they want to be trusted again, first off, one way they can be trusted again is to cover President Trump fairly.
Yeah.
That'd be one way. But you've got half the country that hates them. Mm-hmm. The other half of the country, not all that happy with them, even though they're allied politically.
Yeah.
So where does we've said this before, but I still don't feel we have an answer. Where does the mainstream media go?
I think
in 20 years, who's doing a presidential debate in the 2048 election?
Hopefully us.
But I mean, is it somebody at ABC? Somebody at CNN?
So. No, I
who's
think that's
doing
over.
it?
I think, I think that's going to go more to other outlets. I mean, I think you'll always have some from the legacy media. I think they'll be around picking up table scraps.
Yeah,
but
it's like NATO. It's like Western Europe. They're 1/1,000,000th of what they used to be, but they're not going away.
Right.
Yeah. It might be that. I don't know. I'm just this cancer diagnosis too. I mean, that in 4 years the White House physician. How about putting him under oath?
Yeah.
I mean, and saying, hey, did you submit a false? Were you pressured into saying or doing? O'Connor, that was his name. He was he was from the military, but I don't know. He's been with the Biden family for a long time.
Yeah.
Did you file a false? And there's some question about what do we know about the president's health? Let me tell you something. We're entitled to know. If Joe Biden were driving a car, I wouldn't get in it.
No.
So if he's going to have nuclear codes, I better know he's all right.
Absolutely. I think it should be a matter of law that public has access to a president's medical records, not just Joe Biden's, but any president.
Yeah, I mean, and presidents prior to him have been pretty open.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty rare. Remember Bill Clinton's when he was going to McDonald's all the time and he quit because his blood pressure was too high or something. We got to see it. Bob Dole ripped on him. My blood pressure's lower than yours. And but it was. I know George W. was kind of a fitness fanatic, so he released everything. And obviously, President Obama was younger than a lot of them. But I mean, President Trump is 78, and you wouldn't know it by watching him or looking at his medical stuff. But I mean, is this where and make this happen?
Yeah, Congress needs to do something about it because that's the only way to get this done. We are really in uncharted territory. I know there were rumors surrounding Reagan, that he was dealing with dementia. I know.
I think that was so just. It makes me very angry to see that but
it could have silenced a lot of rumors.
It could have.
And to
look remember, he went to the Mayo Clinic. What did he go to the Mayo Clinic for in his second term? He had an operation or something in his second term. I can't remember, but I remember
removal or something.
It might have been, but I remember him being there in his second term, and I don't know what he went there for. But it was a big story.
Yeah,
and obviously he was shot.
Yep.
I mean, and he was in his 70s. But I think the whole idea that he had Alzheimer's when he was president.
Yeah.
There's a report on him from 1992 that showed him in good health. I think that's pretty well nonsense. Although I will say, and I think it is the truth, that symptoms happen a long time before somebody's actually diagnosed. That is possible.
Yeah.
So I guess I can't dismiss it 100%, but I dismiss it 99 point something. Yeah. I just think in Reagan's case, you know, the speeches he gave and things like that, you don't see there are some people who later came out. I don't know if it was to sell a book. I don't know if it was get on TV that said, Reagan was disoriented at an event or fell asleep somewhere. Yeah. I don't know that, but it kind of came out after his diagnosis, which I think was in like 95. It was after President Nixon's funeral. That's all I remember when the family announced that, he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
But it happens more than it should. I mean,
probably.
You look at FDR during his third term going into his fourth term, you look at...
Had no business being president.
No business
I blame
whatsoever.
his wife for that, too.
Yep.
I blame Edith Roosevelt or Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt, yeah. And
she should have
Woodrow
down.
Wilson,
most
considering
egregious case.
A third term. I mean, I don't think he was considering a third term. It was all his wife, but...
Sickening.
Yeah.
Sickening.
Should never have been allowed to happen. If the Democrats hadn't stepped in on their own party member, he probably would have been allowed to run for a third term.
There's a story of Vice President Thomas Marshall being prevented from meeting with him. Yeah. Never met with him.
Yeah.
The entire second term, which I can't believe. But just, couldn't get a meeting with him, couldn't see him. Was prevented, blocked from him. That and Joe Tumulty, who was his private secretary, Cary Grayson, who was his main physician, who I think misdiagnosed Wilson's stroke. President Kennedy had his problems where he was not all there, I think, a few times. I think he had some back problems. He had some drug problems.
Yeah, he was in a lot of pain.
I mean, part of it was pain related. It wasn't dementia or anything. But
no,
gee, what if he had an episode during the Cuban Missile Crisis? Nobody would have known.
Yeah.
Lyndon Johnson was a heavy smoker, and he died right after being out of office. Not too much longer. Dwight Eisenhower had several. He had a heart attack while president. I mean, it's happened, but. Do you think that I feel the way the 25th Amendment is written, it will never be invoked. Yeah. And I think to have people in the administration do it, I think that can't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't think that can work.
No, because... You work for the president when you're on the cabinet. You're supposedly a trusted individual. You're really going to submerge your career by trying to now anyways. The way that society worked back then, you had more honest brokers that I think
I think you could have done it with anonymity where today you can't.
Right. And I guess I can see, like, from a vice president that has ambition, that where maybe they would try to invoke the 25th Amendment, but then you've got to get the cabinet on board.
Yeah, but who's the arbiter of what's, Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if the president's in a coma, okay? Right. But it's another thing if the president is in a diminished capacity.
Right.
So how do you work the 25? How do we rework this? And tell you what, it ought to go to Congress too. I saw Dianne Feinstein literally get basically wheeled in to Congress, almost off camera. They almost didn't show it.
Yeah,
and she looked dead and was making votes.
Right,
couldn't speak, couldn't walk, couldn't function. Probably pissed herself for all we know. No offense. Sorry to say it, but it's probably true. She was like 91. I mean, we've seen this happen there too, where disoriented people who obviously shouldn't be there are still there.
Yeah.
And so it should be invoked on them too.
Yeah, it would be a great protection for us. It's just who oversees that, and we'd have to come up with something that's solid. How could
you in Congress? What is Congress going to kick out their own? What? How many people have been expelled from Congress all time? Like 3? I mean, they don't get rid of their own.
Right.
So I mean, even somebody from California. I mean, still let them stay there till they're literally wearing a diaper.
Yeah.
So I mean, somehow this has to be reworked so that, and look, I'm not a big fan of doctors either. Okay. I mean, doctors can have their own agenda.
Yeah.
They can be partisan. They can be loyal to the wrong people. But I mean, and I think a diagnosis can be subjective.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you about that when you had brought up, was it Wilson's doctor or
Cary Grayson?
Yeah, how you felt about Biden's doctor because he had to have known something.
Well, he had to have known about the cancer.
Yeah.
Impossibility that a 9 Gleason score came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I've known people with prostate cancer. Not possible.
Yeah.
But if I go back to Wilson's doctor, I think Wilson's doctor misdiagnosed. And again, maybe it was a sign of the times.
Yeah.
That Wilson he diagnosed Wilson as mentally sound with a physical handicap, and I think that was wrong.
Right.
I think Wilson was mentally way more screwed up than anybody dared say.
Yes.
I think he was emotional. He was almost like a child. He was very, very diminished. But I think he had the appearance of being in charge, and I really think that was misdiagnosed. Now, like I said, that could have been a sign of the times. It could have been not understanding everything we understand now. But as far as Biden's doctor goes, again, if he didn't get a PSA test, I want to know why he didn't.
Right.
I got one. I'm 48. Okay. I got a PSA test.
Yeah.
How is it possible you can't tell me the president hasn't had blood work done. He had COVID allegedly last summer, which I still don't believe, but let's just say, because he supposedly had a cold right before the debate, then he got COVID 2 weeks later, which I don't buy that's true. You can't tell me blood work wasn't done. You can't tell me the president doesn't get checked for diabetes, his blood sugar. The guy's 82 years old.
Yeah.
So, again, and if this was true, if they did hide this, if he was being treated, and if he was, it's going to come out by somebody. I don't know what the point is lying about it. This doctor needs to be put under oath and held accountable for it.
Yeah. I mean,
he lied not only to the country, he gave Biden a clean bill of health in March of 2024.
I think that there should be some sort of criminal. I mean, when you're talking about the country, and if something happened to our president and we appeared to our enemies like we were leaderless, there should be some sort of criminal standard to hold a doctor to that, everything's fine. And then one day he keels over and throws the world into upheaval?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. If somebody lied on a normal patient, could their medical license be in jeopardy? Come on. Yeah. This doctor needs to be subpoenaed. I hate to say it, but the only way we're going to get to the truth, to me, is through a congressional investigation. And I want to know.
Yes.
Who was running this country? My suspicion is that it was Jill. That's my suspicion. I think
she was in on it.
I've gone from thinking it was Blinken or Jake Sullivan or Ron Klain. Yeah, probably. But they had influence when they had influence on Biden 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Who was actually doing the job? Who is actually signing his name? Because the president literally sat there and let the left wing of the Democratic Party do anything they wanted to.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair to Joe Biden, that wasn't the Joe Biden of 2005 or 2008.
Yeah.
Did he just change with the times, or was somebody else running the show? Could be both. Maybe he did make some decisions and didn't make others. But again, you can't tell me he had good days and bad days, that he was lucid sometimes and not others, and then tell me he made every decision. That's not plausible.
Right. I can tell you this. They probably did not allow Kamala to make any of those decisions.
If they were smart, they wouldn't have. But again, that's a story in and of itself. There's a story out there that Biden didn't think that she could beat Donald Trump, didn't think she'd make a good president. Well, then here's my question. Why did you pick her?
Right.
We all know the answer. It was a DEI hire.
Yep.
That was the reason. DEI. Wasn't hire the best person, it's hire the person who checks the most boxes.
Right. So,
again, there's that on top of it. But I'll tell you what, to watch these Democrats, And again, they're going to get away with this to a degree. I mean, to a degree, they're going to get away with this because A, the media is complicit. B, at some point, I think the public may tire of this, but to a degree, they're going to get away with this. But I want somebody to sit down with Kamala, Robert Hur should sue these people for libel.
Yeah.
He'd probably win. You know, you watched Jake Tapper go after Laura Trump. You watched, Joe Scarborough say "F you" to anybody who didn't like what he had to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to see that and to see them try to squirm out of this, knowing that they're gonna keep their jobs.
Yeah.
Knowing George Stephanopoulos just got a huge raise.
Yep.
You know,
yeah, nothing happens to these people. Nothing.
So, Jay, let me ask you this. I mean, the Democratic Party going forward, who survived? Does Schumer, does Hakeem Jeffries survive? Does Hakeem Jeffries fumbled and bumbled and couldn't give a straight answer? He goes on friendly interviews and still can't give a straight. He's totally ineffective.
Yeah.
Nobody on the Democratic side fears him. Does he stay? Schumer's? I can't believe Schumer's still there, especially considering his age and how bad they lost Senate seats and should have lost more.
Yeah.
In 24, we'll probably lose again next 2 years. Look pretty bad. I mean, like I say, there's more red states than blue states. Who survives this? Do they survive it? Do they all survive it? What happens to the Pete Buttigiegs of the world here with this?
Well, you know, in a sane world, they don't survive it at all.
Yeah.
In a sane world, it's like, oh, these guys are awful. Let's, but that's not the world we live in, right? Definitely I mean, everybody knows that Hakeem Jeffries is weak. He's a weak leader, and he is. Nancy Pelosi is still pulling the strings on the House Democrats from behind. He is nowhere near Nancy Pelosi yet. I don't think they're going to switch anything up. I mean, you've got the nut wing of the party that seems to be making a play for the power structures of the Democrat Party. When you're talking about AOC and Bernie Sanders possibly being a ticket in 2028, like the winning ticket for the Democrats, I'm sorry. That's
when you say that, I don't think Sanders can be on there.
Yeah,
I don't think
it might be somebody else.
I don't think you could nominate an old white guy again.
Yeah, but he's popular enough with that wing of the party that they don't see him as white because of because he's a socialist.
Well, I think Sanders has to hand the baton to somebody.
Yeah.
AOC, I don't know. There's a degree of unseriousness with her.
Oh, I know.
And
if you're serious and you look at her, she's unserious. But these are the people that stand outside of universities waving Palestinian flags and chanting "Death to Israel."
Yeah, I mean there is that, but that's not an unpopular opinion inside the Democratic Party, though.
No.
I mean, it's sad to say. And look, there's things Israel does that I don't support, but overall, I would take them over the Hamas and Hezbollah. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you look at, anybody who runs in 28, I think, is still sort of tainted with the Biden-Harris presidency. I think, how do they, like I've said before, what they need is the Democratic Trump. They need somebody out of left field who's not tied to them.
Right.
Because here's the thing. You can't come out and say, okay, no transvestites in girls' sports. Yeah, that's bad. No, you can't do that after advocating that for years.
Right.
It's going to look insincere. It's going to look like no one's going to be fooled by that.
Right.
So you can't all of a sudden come out and say you're for borders when Trump shut it down
Yeah.
and done the job for you. You can't argue that now. No one's going to buy it. It's never going to come across as authentic. It has to be. I'm not saying it has to be like Bill Maher, but it has to be someone like that who is not handicapped by what happened during it's like in the 80s they had to make a full break with like Jimmy Carter and just that's gone. It's no longer who we are.
Right.
You know, it's like they couldn't do that until Clinton. And it's like when Trump came and divorced the party from the forever wars and the globalists, and that's not who Republicans are anymore. Now, it took Trump a while to make the party his,
right?
But that, to me, a total change has to happen.
Yeah, but
you can't do that with Chuck Schumer there,
right?
And with Gavin Newsom trying to do a podcast, which is totally fake.
But I guess that's my point, is you look back at 1980 and Reagan wins, they shove Carter to the side, but then you have people like Tip O'Neill in leadership that could work with Reagan.
Right.
You don't have that in today's Democrat Party.
That's true. And George Mitchell, too, in the Senate.
Yeah.
Who worked with Reagan on a lot of things.
You don't have
Voted for the Reagan tax cuts.
Yeah. The last of those walked out the door when Joe Manchin retired.
Well, they're trying to kick the only one they got left, John Fetterman, trying to get rid of him. Kristen Sinema, they got rid of her.
Yeah.
I mean, Fetterman, they leak out a bunch of stuff about his health. They knew all along that Fetterman was open and honest that he had a stroke in 2020 or whatever it was. It wasn't trying to hit. It's now that he doesn't go with them on this issue. He and Dave McCormick went to Mar-a-Lago to talk to Trump about energy. Of course, he's from an energy producing state, which makes total sense, but can't bring jobs there. No, you did the immortal sin. So now we're going to leak something out about your depression meds or whatever that was in that story. And Fetterman called it a far left paper or something like that. It was like, whoa, who on the left says that? I understand it. He's clearly being attacked.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like you can't do it. It's like they can't do it. They can't work with it.
They really cannot come back from the position they're in because they have moved so far to the left. And they're all believers. None of them are faking it. None of them are. You used to have pragmatic Democrats that were like, oh yeah, I'll go along with that because it'll be good for me politically. But you don't have that. There are
with the Blue Dog Coalition. What happened to them? Remember, there were like 50 of them at one time.
Yeah.
It's how cap and trade got stopped. They voted against it.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't have that.
Yeah, I don't know what they do, and you're right though. It probably can't come from the top down. It probably has to be. Do you think though? I mean, and I look, I'm going to contradict myself here, but I want a strong Democratic Party. That may sound crazy.
Yeah.
But one party rule scares me.
Yeah.
That's where we get corruption. That's how we get arrogance. That's how we get lifetime people, which I don't want even on the right. And I think if the Republican Party's on their toes, it makes them better. I think it makes them fight harder if they know their opposition is strong.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing to have a strong. I wish there were more than two parties. It would take billions of dollars for that to happen. But I hope that the Democratic Party is not weak. I don't want them to be weak, but
they are, as long as this is their position. You have two parties that are so far apart from each other. It's one thing when you're fighting over, we're going to hold the line on taxes versus we want to raise taxes 3%.
Yeah. You're going to cut spending 1%. We're going to cut it 3%. Yeah. Okay. We can figure that out.
That kind of stuff. It's like, okay, whatever. You want more social
smoke-filled room and we'll figure it out.
Yep. You want a bigger social net. We want a smaller social net. whatever, we'll meet in the middle. And maybe in some ways that's created some of the problem that we have nowadays.
Could be.
Because it has caused people to go meet in the smoke-filled rooms.
Yeah.
However, when you have them so far apart, then it's this clear that one party is one way and the other party is the other way, and never the two shall meet. I'm sorry, but the Democrat Party is just weak, and they're not healthy competition to keep the Republicans honest.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Is there a point where the Dems realize that? And I don't necessarily I don't necessarily mean the voters, because I'm surprised in a way that more voters haven't defected. I don't know if it's they hate Trump. I don't know if they just vote Democrat out of habit. I don't know if it's just their union telling them to, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, you talk to an average Democrat, they don't want boys and women's sports.
Right.
They don't want open borders. They don't want to hate white people. They don't want, I mean, if you talk to the average Democrat, they don't identify with what the people they vote for talk to.
Right.
So either does it have to happen from the Democratic voters, or does the Democratic brass, say what a guy like James Carville's been saying, or what like a guy like David Axelrod's been saying, who people I disagree with, but you can see the pragmatism in what they say. Like, okay, look, they can give a good political analysis even if I don't agree with them. They can say, hey, look, this right here, James Carville, big losing issue right here. What the hell are the Democrats doing? Everybody. I mean, he can come on, and he does it in a funny way, but you can see what he's trying to say is, you are losing. Get your head screwed on straight.
Yeah.
Do I have to spell it out for you? I mean, what? There are a handful who say that, but
but
I feel like they're from a different era. Like they're from, even Axelrod sounds ancient when he says something like, "Hey, this is stupid. Why are we doing this?"
Well, who else thinks they're from a different era? The Democrat Party. Right? Because they're telling Carville to shut his mouth. Exactly. They don't want to listen to it.
I know they don't.
To their own detriment.
Don't listen to a guy who elected a guy president. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do. Yeah, him and David Axelrod. They've elected the last two Democratic presidents, but don't listen to them. Okay, fine. But I mean, how are the David Hoggs of the world going to? You listen to them. They don't care about winning.
Oh no,
they don't care about listening to anybody. It's all about lording over people, and I just can't see how that goes indefinitely. I can't see how they can be that out of it, that somebody doesn't steer the ship. And it may cause them to go lower before they go back up. But Mark Penn and Doug Schoen, who used to work for Bill Clinton, who work on Fox News, said this. They said, look, twice in my lifetime, there's been elections where Democrats won one state. Okay? We came back from that. If we can come back from that, we can come back from this. And I want to say, okay, but
it's a different Democrat Party.
I mean, number one, you don't have a message or a messenger. So that's why the far left fills the vacuum. Because there isn't a JFK there to.
Yeah. I mean, during the 80s, yes, it was all about the Republican Party. The Republican Party was the gold standard, the standard bearer of our political wins, and
it was, but you still had a Democratic House. You still had.
They weren't so far gone.
They were still capitalists. They were still God believing. They were still. It was a different party at that.
Yeah. So to get a Bill Clinton, I mean, he's a Bill Clinton. You think any of these Democrats there are a Bill Clinton that can appeal to anybody outside of their far left base? No.
I don't even think they have a Barack Obama.
I don't either.
I mean, I don't think
as far left as he was, at least he appealed to the middle.
I can understand Obama's appeal to a degree. I can see it to a degree.
Right.
The guy had talent. The guy was smart. Say what you want about him. I didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
But I can understand how he appealed to somebody.
And I don't think you're ever going to find a slick enough Democrat
to walk that
is going to get up there and say, we've got to give up our gas. We've got to give up our gas-powered cars. We've got to, we've got to open the borders again. We've got, you will never, although Joe Biden didn't run on those things either. He lied.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, but again, I think it's harder and harder to lie now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, again, in 2020, that was an anomaly. I think with COVID, with the lack of campaigning, with the changing of rules, Biden would have been exposed in 2020, I think, in a normal election.
If he had to get out there and campaign
and engage the way he had to. You saw that he couldn't do it that way again.
Right.
There's no way he was, even with the media on his side, part of it was because his approval rating was so low, and he had no choice but to get out there, and it got exposed. But I think in 2020, I think it would have gotten exposed because Trump would have been everywhere,
right?
And he couldn't be everywhere. And I think Trump, I still think, would have won that quite comfortably without what happened that year. That's my opinion. I mean, when you lose 3 states by 40,000 votes, you can't tell me Trump wouldn't have made that up in a normal race. There's no question that he would have.
Right.
And then, of course, he flipped them all back in 24. It's impossible. I don't believe it. And I still don't believe Joe Biden get 81 million votes. You will never get me to believe that, ever in a million years. I mean, again, I don't want to relitigate it, but I don't want Mike Pence as the president now, okay?
Right.
Which could have happened. So whatever, but you won't convince me that he got 81 million votes. I will never believe that.
Right.
And if you look, what's interesting too, Victor Davis Hanson did a thing on this where how the amount of voters from 2016 to 2020 jumped so much and then receded in 24.
Yeah.
He showed like one example of that ever happening. And one of them had to do with women getting the right to vote. He goes, it's so bizarre how that happened. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden we had this ridiculous turnout, and then it's more back to normal in 24. And if you chart Trump's vote, it's like a cliff at like a 15% rise. As the population went up, his share went up a little bit, and the Democrats, it's a total yo-yo. It's just no, it's just. I don't know. I gotta say this though. Let me ask you one more question.
Yeah. Anybody
go to jail over this?
No.
Think anybody will go to jail over this?
I hope so. I don't know if I believe it because it hasn't happened, but I want to see it. I would like to see people go to jail. If you have committed a crime, an actual crime, I'm not talking about making up a crime like with President Trump. Yeah. I'm talking about an actual crime. Crimes, if you have committed a crime, you need to go to jail. And there needs to be court cases, not just hearings in front of Congress.
But let me ask you this. Yeah. Is covering up his health, is that a crime? Is his aides covering this up, lying to the media, lying to the nation? His press secretary, who wouldn't tell the truth if it ran her over, if falsifying this stuff, is knowingly doing that.
I don't know. I guess, is it a crime?
Probably not, technically.
I don't know. I mean,
but it's not like it's one thing to lie about a tax cut. It's another thing to
say he's in his best form ever.
Yeah, he runs this 82-year-old guy who falls down in private. Though he's totally different.
Right, he runs circles around all of us. Yeah.
I don't know.
The guy can't ride a bike in a straight line.
Yeah, but like I said, if you were driving a car, I wouldn't get in it. But do you think Hunter had a role? Hunter have a role? I think it was just
Maybe.
Jill.
I think Hunter was there.
He's just there to reap the Biden ink.
I think, he was there to go get deals. He was there to, I think he was seen as the screw up. I don't think he was entrusted with anything important, but I think
probably true.
That he was at
the
least
redheaded stepchild.
He was used, and he was used to go
he allowed
get
himself
deals.
To be used.
Yeah. Well, he profited from it. That's why he made tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, by doing what? I mean, he just lent his name or lent Joe's name.
And
the big guy.
Right. He was able to get people an audience with Joe, And so it's...
I don't know, but I got to say, man, those Her tapes were hard to listen to. They were painful. And I one thing I did over last week is I rewatched that Trump-Biden debate, which I have not done since last June. I mean, I've seen highlights or lowlights, if you want to call it.
Right.
But I re-saw it, and I'll tell you what, it is 10 times as bad when you rewatch it.
Oh, yeah.
It's way worse than when the campaign's over and you're not neck deep in my team against their team or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't paying attention to Trump. I was just paying attention to Biden. And there's some people despise Joe Biden. I don't. I think he was the worst president ever, but
yes,
I don't despise him personally. And he was still my president, even though I didn't vote for him.
Right. And I wanted him to succeed.
Oh, who wants somebody to fail? I never want somebody to fail. I mean, really, you want your neighbors and friends unemployed just so your guy can win? I would never have that attitude.
No.
I would point it out how bad they suck, but I wouldn't hope for it.
No, I wouldn't hope for it. You want somebody to do better, so you point it out. You want somebody to put in the right
contrast
policies that are going to make things work the way they should.
But I mean, he gave one answer saying that there were a lot of women being raped by their in-laws and their sisters, and I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
I mean,
it
are
was
you
a
kidding
goofy
me?
Answer.
Getting raped by their in-laws? I mean, just gibberish. I mean, nonsense. Then Gavin Newsom after it. Biden did great. I remember the next day there was a rally. Biden had a rally. Boy, talk about a tepid one.
Yeah.
Where Jill comes out and goes, did Joe do great?
Yeah.
And you just see like the golf claps, everybody kind of looking at each other. And Biden called Roe v. Wade roller over. And I'm just going, gee whiz. God, this is bad. It's just so bad. But the other thing too, I keep hearing the Dems blaming Biden for the loss in 2024, but I contend any Democrat would have lost that race.
Yep.
Every one of them would have been saddled with the Biden-Harris regime, the way McCain was saddled with Iraq and George W. Bush, the way Walter Mondale was saddled with Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
You couldn't have gotten out of that. I don't think.
I don't think so either.
So, I mean, I think they would have lost. I think another person could have lost by more. I don't know. I mean, Biden-Harris at least had the organization of being the incumbents that always has some advantages, but I think not having a primary might have helped because I always say candidates get better when they have to go through that.
Yeah.
They answer the tough questions from their party, so they're hardened for the general, but it could have been worse. They could have gone more left and couldn't have gone. I don't know, but I think it's BS. I think they would have lost no matter what.
It could very well be.
So
could very well be. I believe that to be true. Although, the Republicans, Donald Trump, won every single swing state, but it was still tight.
Yeah.
Even with that candidate, not that they really had. I mean, anybody was better than her, but
maybe, but I don't know that would have changed the results that much.
Right.
The campaign money could have only stayed with her. I don't know. I don't know that would have changed the I don't know that the narrative of the border, inflation, I don't know that the issues would have changed all that much. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think the issues would have changed. They would have had to defend the border, and they would have had to defend a lot of other things, and maybe with a different candidate.
Transsexual stuff that would have been there no matter who the Democrat would have been. So I think they would have all been struggling. That's just my opinion. But at the same time, I think it's nonsense, though, to say that Biden cost them the race. I mean, the fact that there were no Democrats who would step up outside of Dean Phillips and RFK and say, look, this guy can't do the job.
Right.
Okay. And both of them were basically, RFK was chased out of the party and Dean Phillips was like put in purgatory, and he's still there. I mean, he's still like a pariah. And it's like, why? All the guy did was say what you're all saying now 2 years later.
Yeah.
I
mean, he was right on.
I mean, he said, look, this guy can't do the job, can't win.
Yep.
Now everybody's acknowledging that that's true. So,
yes.
Okay. We'll invite him back to the party then. I mean, look, I just think, there's so much soul searching that has to go on there. But number one, I don't think they're fully going to do it. Two, I don't think they're fully going to be held accountable. Three, I think the media will try to move on from this. Yeah. But I think the story's going to get worse.
Yeah, I do too. I mean,
somebody's going to write that $1 million book. Somebody's going to the Bidens are going to piss off another person. Somebody's going to get thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to happen by someone.
It's going to happen.
Especially if Biden dies.
Right.
Then there's going to be no loyalty at all.
And I believe that's when we will probably find out what Jill did or didn't do.
Could be.
I don't know that will happen while he's still
alive. I'm going to ask you this. If Jill did something, this is where I think a crime could happen.
Yeah.
If somebody did something, acting as the president.
Yeah.
Is that a crime? Ron Klain signed Joe Biden's name without Joe Biden knowing what was going on. Is Ron Klain committing a crime? Not alleging he did. I have to believe he did this, though.
Right.
I can't buy that we had a president who was with it half the time, who made every decision. I don't buy it.
Yeah. Well, again.
Hey, Joe, we signed this yesterday. Oh,
right.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, there weren't crimes brought against Wilson's wife when she would put the pen in his hand to sign documents.
That's right.
It's happened before.
I wonder what happened with FDR, especially in his fourth term. He had no business being there. Yeah. Absolutely zero. I mean, none whatsoever. So I don't know. I don't know if Eleanor was the president. I don't know if guys like Harry Hopkins and people around FDR were kind of running the show. Henry Stimson or people like that. I'm not sure. I have to guess that they were given at least more to do than they would have ordinarily have. But there's another case where, I mean, Harry Truman was the vice president. He wasn't even brought in the loop.
Right.
So who was the bubble around? You can't tell me that was FDR's decision. He was clearly diminished. Uh-huh. So who was controlling that?
Yeah.
I can't believe FDR said, "Hey, pick that Truman guy, but don't tell him about the Manhattan Project." Come on, that didn't come from him.
No.
Where did it come from? Who prevented that? Questions we still don't know 80 years later, Jay.
Right.
So I got a gut feeling that if Biden dies, the dam's really going to break, and that could happen. And you're going to have all these people, okay, I don't have to be loyal to this guy anymore.
Right.
I don't care what this guy thinks anymore. There's $1 million book deal. I'm never going to work again. I might as well go get it.
Right.
I mean, there's got to be something like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm going to say something, too. I don't like this. This is not a proud moment for our country.
No.
Or our Constitution or anything else. It's embarrassing.
No, that we allowed this to happen is completely embarrassing. You know, and when you have the European Union and the World Economic Forum knocking at the door, you have China knocking at the door, you have Russia knocking at the door, you have the BRICS nations.
It's a scary time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really scary time.
And we're having to go through some
all the countries.
pain
Look
to
at
get
India and
reset.
Pakistan, nuclear countries.
Right.
I mean, I know that there's a agreement right now, but that's fragile.
Yeah.
You got 2 nuclear countries.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Thank goodness we had a president that.
Yeah. What if Biden was president during that? They'd probably be, who knows what would be going on.
Yeah.
You couldn't deal with it after 4:30. I don't know. But I mean, it just, you think about how worse things got in his 4 years, whether it was world peace, whether it was our border, whether it was our economy, and you just go, wow.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it's a signal about how much power is in the hands of one man, too.
Yeah.
And maybe that shouldn't be there.
Right. Well, the presidency was never meant to be as
yeah, Congress is supposed to be the strongest
is.
branch, but they are the weakest in many ways,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I think that's self-imposed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've abdicated a lot of their duties.
Yeah.
I think they're afraid of some of the intelligence agencies. I think they're worried about their own reelection, and they're not worried about about the country so much. But all right, well,
that's where senators need to be appointed by the states once again.
You. Repeal that amendment. Is that the 16th or the 17th? That's the 16th.
Yeah.
Repeal the 16th and 17th. Bring William Howard Taft back. I want President Taft back. Succeed Trump. Why not? Then Vance can be after that. We'll have a Taft Vance for 4 years.
There we go.
All right, Jay. Style and profiling.
Hey, he's more alive than Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No doubt about it. Jet flying, limousine riding, wheel and deal and son of a gun. Jay, improve my mood, will you?
I will try. Thank you, Andrew. You know, this is what happens when we are in a place that we turn a blind eye to what's going on in society, where we're so consumed with our own comings and goings that we ignore what's going on right in front of our eyes. It's up to us to pay attention. It's up to us to make sure that we're informed, but yet we make a habit out of our leisure, out of our hobbies. We can't do that. You know, we search for happiness, but happiness really, in and of itself, is emptiness. We chase things that make us feel better for a moment, but when that moment's gone, we feel worse again, and so we do something else to chase and make us happy. We have to instead do what we know is right. To actually go after the hard things, be willing to sacrifice, like George Washington was willing to sacrifice. And in that, we find joy because we enter into the work that we're supposed to do, the work that God himself gave us. That when we do those things, a joy builds up within us out of our obedience, out of our passion for doing the right thing. And that's where a long-lasting happiness comes from, when we do the right thing. And the right thing is not ignoring things and getting involved. That feels good for a moment, but then you have to come back and deal with all of the garbage that you've been dealt by the people on the far left or Republicans that didn't care to step into the fray and actually make sure it was done right. No, we've got to do that on the front end. that little bit of uncomfortable, the pit in our stomach, the fear, the whatever that we feel for a moment, it's come and it's gone. As long as we step into doing the right thing, our long-term possibilities feel a whole lot better. So one thing that you can do is begin to be a journalist right where you live. We need citizen journalists who are going to listen to their school board meetings, their city council meetings, their township meetings, their county meetings, that are willing to go down to the Capitol and get press passes and sit in the press briefings and ask questions, that are willing to blog and podcast and make content for YouTube and TikTok. And those are the people that we need right now, who are willing to stand up and fight. Is that you? If so, you can get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Because it's only when we stand up and fight, only when we fight through the uncomfortable things to do the right thing, that we will make this state great once again. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.